Well, hello, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Say hello in the chat if the video is live. And I'm waking up where I am with my coffee. And today on the 3C show live with Johny-J, we're going to be processing some of your photos that you sent in. It's oh man, we got some great submissions. I'm super excited about this. There's some great photos there. In fact, there's so many photos got sent in. I've downloaded a few of them. I don't even think I'm going to get through the ones I downloaded. We're going to have to do another show, but that's okay because I've only got about an hour this morning. So we'll jump in and get that hour done. Just let me know if you're in the chat there. Say hello, and I'll see. Make sure we're live over here. Yep, I can see we're live now. It's looking good. If you're watching live there, just say hello in the chat. It'd be great to hear from you. There we are. Andrew's there. Good morning, Andrew. All right. Grab your coffee, grab your drinks. We'll sit around and process some photos. Now, I haven't gone through and pre-edited any of these, or I haven't, I've had a quick look over them, but these are just photos being sent in by the Team 3CX community, and yeah, just looking forward to going through and processing some of these. Good morning, Norel. So we might even get started. We've only got a few people live now. Vicky's here. Hello. And let's cut our music off. It's funny now, that music, every time I hear it, I know there's a live stream coming. So I play it for a first couple of minutes before I go live, and it starts to get me pumped. So looking good. All right, let's jump over to the screen. Let's do it. I'm still getting used to the software, guys, so please forgive me. I'm very red this morning. My eyes are a little bit tired. I don't know about you guys. The lockdown stuff has been, oh man, I tend to be going to bed a little bit later and waking up a little bit later. So yeah, the live streams have been good, forcing me to get up in the morning a lot earlier and get ready. So looking good. All right, look at all these photos. These are just the ones I quickly downloaded, and you can see some super creative ones here. Such a variety. We've got birds, we've got lots of things going on. So yeah, g'day Carol, how are you? Welcome. All right, looking good. I don't even know where to start. There's some awesome ones here. I know this is one of the ones, I think this is from Jim. Jim submitted this during the thing, so we might have a look at one of Jim's. I actually like this one. So if I can fit it there, I'm going to hit the D key and head over to the develop module. I'm just going to bring this down here. So we've got a lovely night sky. I forget, Jim did tell me what planet that was there, but I can't remember. So sorry, Jim, I apologize. So looking at the photograph, it's shooting night skies like this is really hard, and you can see this was a 30-second shot at f4, so even because we're trying to let as much light in as possible with these type of frames. So let's just have a quick look at this one anyway. So there's a couple of things I can see. A couple of the stars there look a little blown out, and you're always going to have quite a noisy image. Okay, so let's just have a look. I just want to bring up the exposure in general, and we do have a little bit of light bleed here, and it looks like we've even got, it looks like maybe a satellite went past, or maybe it was a shooting star or something, or maybe it was a plane, who knows. Let's say it was a shooting star because that sounds so much cooler, but I'm not sure exactly what that was there. But basically what you want to do with these type of photographs, guys, is on the histogram, you'll see it's pushed up quite dark, okay? So the thing is, they're always going to be quite dark because we've got this silhouetted area that's always going to be quite dark. I do like what you've got for your foreground there, Jim. I think maybe, one big old tree, or one, a building standing up, or, something like one big old feature, like you've got this little tree here would help that foreground as well. Or what I've seen before too is a person with a light. So a person standing there with a headlamp on or something like that often helps complement, that foreground there. All right, so let's have a quick look, because these are usually quite a quick edit. There's not too much in it, so I like that bright glow there. I am going to open up the shadows there a little bit. And one thing with these is sometimes you either as shot or just auto, see what happens there. And see, it's going to cool things down there with the white balance, which I think is fine. I like the cooler white balance. I think that's really, really nice. And as I look at this photograph, and I know it's all about the sky, but I'm thinking more, you know, because the stars in this area, I mean, they're nice up here as well. Excuse me. But the crop, just to complement that foreground element. And I've been doing this a lot more in my crop. It's just cropping it in more of a 16:9 or panoramic type crop, I think would be stronger for this photograph. I'll just make sure that we are on fit here. I feel like we're not seeing the whole photograph. And you got these little disclosure triangles left and right, guys, and I just use those to move that back and forth. Okay, you can go away now, Mr. Panel. That's looking good. Let's just see here. My Lightroom's wigging out today, guys, so I apologize for that. It's unfit. So, yeah, anyway, let's just keep going. All right. So, and guys, like I said, I haven't seen these before, so I am just feeling my way through them. So what's really important when you come to photographs like this is your noise reduction here. So I'm going to post up that noise reduction, and usually, you know, with these photographs, Jim's done a pretty good job. He's kept it around that sort of 400 ISO, so that means that it's not going to be too noisy. So somewhere between that 29 and 30 is going to be fine, and we're not trying to pull out massive amounts of detail in this bottom area because it is totally silhouetted, guys. I think that's fine. That's cleaned that up there. And the same with the sharpening. We're going to sharpen things up, but we don't want to go too crazy, because what we want to do is hold down the Option key and drag that masking slider to the right and see everything that's turning black now isn't being affected by our sharpening, and everything that's white is still being affected by the sharpening. So that's going to stop some of that noise coming back into the photograph. So I think that's getting there. That's kind of cool. We might have missed our focus on this actually. Now it's starting to load in there, Jim, but that's okay. It's tough, you know, when you're shooting a photograph like this. If you don't have the affinity marker on your lens, often, you know, you have to try and focus on something, you know, in that foreground or near ground or something with the light. And sometimes, you know, if you can't manually focus, if you haven't got like a mirrorless camera that has something like focus peaking, which brings up like this area that shows you the scene that's in focus, like an overlay type of thing. If you're not sure what focus peaking is, it can be quite difficult. So yeah, focusing on something in the difference. Often if you've got a big bright light, you can shine that bright light out and focus on a point, you know, a third into your scene, or it's going to help get that sharpness. So yeah, it is a tough situation. There's no doubt about that. Certainly lots of elements against you, you know, super dark areas, super bright areas, trying to focus it, it's challenging. It certainly is. So here's where we start, where there's before, after. And I'm liking where that's going, but I just wanted to, go down here and just have a play around. I just will add a touch of a vignette there. I'm just going to bring those ends in a little bit there. We'll feather that out there. If you're not sure what these sliders are doing, it's always good to make a darker vignette, and you can have a play around with what the midpoint does. You can have a play around and what the roundness is doing, okay? And then feather it right out, and then you can back it off. I often just do that. And there's a nice little vignette there. It's just pulling those edges in, mainly around the top, because to me, that glow area is what I really like. Now, I am liking, I'm going to go back in here. The last thing I really want to do to this photograph, guys, is I want to bring out this orangey tones, okay? And this is where, you know, we're making more localized adjustments. We're sort of done our global adjustments, and I like where that's at now. You know, I like the brightness in the bottom. You know, and that's what I mean. You know, we talked about exposure as a creative choice. Maybe I need to bring the exposure back down a little bit, you know, and it's totally your choice in the end. But let's have a look here. I think that's looking pretty good. I'm just looking at the color tone now, and maybe I want to I'm going to make it a little bit cooler there. And the reason is it's starting to bring out some of those colors up there in the sky. All right. And usually what I like to do is just add a bit of saturation, because it's going to naturally bring out those colors. And I don't usually use a lot of saturation, because if you set your white and black points and you get your contrast right, the colors usually naturally pop. But with a night sky, sometimes they're quite flat. Excuse me, guys, I'm a little bit choked up this morning. Don't know why. Yeah, so usually you want to add a little bit of saturation. Okay, there's there before, after, before, after. You can see we're starting to bring out all those stars. We've got all those beautiful colors there. And the last thing I really want to do is I'm going to add a graduated filter, but I'm going to drag from the top, from the bottom to the top. So it's reversed at the moment. If I hit the O key, you can see what it's affecting, okay? I'm waiting, in waiting room. Hi, Jane, welcome. At the doctor's. I hope all's well. Let's have a look here. So, and that's the beauty of mobile technology these days. You can be doing anything, anywhere, and jump on and watch it. And because we're all working at home, we can follow along while we're doing our work and things like that. So, super awesome. All right. So, we've done a reverse. So, you can see the red area is what's being affected right now, okay? So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this masking to luminance. And the reason why is I don't want that to affect that whole area. So, for example, let me turn that off. Hit the O key. I know what I'm doing here. Go away, go away. There we go. So if I was to add that yellow tone back in there, you can see what's happening. It's adding it to that whole area. And I don't want that. I really just want it to add to the brighter areas of that part of the photograph, okay? And so what we can do is down here in this luminance range mask is I can start to drag the range less and less and less and less. And you can see what's happening. It's starting to affect only those brighter highlights there. So I'm going to turn off that mask just so I can see what's actually going on with our adjustment there. And I'm going to feather that out a little bit more. And you need to play around with, when you're doing things like this, adding tone to your image. It was there in the beginning. You remember when we first opened up the image, the before. You can see it has that yellow glow there, okay, but we've taken that away because we've cooled the whole image down. And now I actually like that bit of yellow glow. It adds something extra to the photograph. So I'm actually bringing that back now by this luminance mask. All right, and I think somewhere around there. So let's have a look. So if I turn that off and on, you can see it's made that little glow there come back. So I think that's looking pretty good. We've got a pretty natural looking photograph now. Before, after, before, after. Now, you can go ahead and tone the sky different, and you see a lot of people will start to add a bit more magenta into it. But I'm one of these people who like to leave it a bit more natural looking, and I think that's where saturation really helps. You know, using your auto white balance really helps. And that is a super cool photo. So well done, Jimbo. I hope that helps, buddy. I don't know if anyone calls you Jimbo, but let me know if there's a problem with anything, guys. If we're having an issue with the stream, please let me know if it drops off or something. Looks like we're still solid at the moment. All right. Oh, we've got another beautiful night sky. These are lovely. Let's just jump into this first one here. And who's this one by? One from Ronald. Okay. So I'm not sure of the location, but I do like this. Let's have a look at the camera settings anyway. So F14, ISO 20th second. Yeah, cool. No problems there with the camera settings. I think we've captured all the dynamic range. This is one of these occasions, you know, where we could have shot a HDR, but it looks like, I'm not sure what camera Ronald's using, but let's just have a look here. If we hit the D key, let's just have a look in the develop module and see what we can do with. So if we open up the shadows there, yeah, you can see there's good detail there. There's probably a little bit of noise there, but nothing we can't clean up, okay? But given we've got the sun in the scene, it's okay for us to, you know, blow out that area, okay, have that area blown out, but it's held back the highlights pretty well there, and you can see I can easily pull back detail in that area if I wanted to. You got to be super nice work with the stars. Yeah, Norella, they are tricky. They're really tricky, and learning to, yeah, manual focus. Yeah, it is tough. It is really tough. But the important thing is, whenever you're out shooting, guys, is, you know, one of the steps you need to do is bring the photos up either in your electric viewfinder if you've got a mirrorless camera, and look in there, or on your live view, and really zoom in and look around and make sure you've nailed that sharpness. Super important. All right, let's get into this one. So I'm just going to open up the shadows there a little bit and the highlights, pull them down a touch, not crazily. Because what will happen, you see, if I pull them highlights right back, we get this murky, you can see where we've lost detail here. But that's okay with a photograph like this. It's not a big deal. It's not something I'm worried about because I can see the sun there, but I'm looking at detail up in this area at the top. And I can see, this is a TIFF I think we've got this time, guys. So, no, it is a DMG. Okay, that's okay. So let's just cool things down. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to cool this photo down. And sometimes this is what you do. See, I'm planning ahead. I'm thinking, okay, if I cool things down a little bit, I can add some warmth back to this area with localized adjustments, okay? And that's what I'm thinking, all right? So I'm going to set the white and black point now. If I hold down the Option key or Command key if you're on Windows, and what that's doing, Lightroom's just going to fill out the ends here. You know, remember if you catch the last live show about exposure, you'll know that this has got to do with the whites and this area's got to do with the blacks. And you'll watch, Lightroom should fill that out there. Sorry, it's the Shift key, guys. Got my key wrong. I'm pretty sure it's the Shift key in Windows too, guys. And that's looking pretty good. We're starting to get there. And you'll see everything I do, guys, it's not like these major changes. Everything builds on each other. You know, you'll never see me do some sort of crazy adjustment that just affects everything and you know, changes things in one slider. It's all building on each other. That's what we're doing. You know, I'm looking at the histogram, I'm looking at the photograph going, oh, how do I want it to feel at the end? And I don't mind it being a touch darker, this one, because we've got this bright, beautiful light coming in that draws you through the scene anyway. You know, we've got this natural leading lines of the path, okay? We've got a person down here or something, which is silhouetted, which is kind of cool. All right, let's just keep going down here. And again, we're just going to add that sharpening around that 70 to 80. And I'm just looking in here, making sure everything's nice and sharp. And look at I don't know if you could tell in the video, but there's the before, after. Look at that sharpness, beautiful there. Nail that focus there, buddy. So Option key, just drag that masking slider to the right. Looking good, looking good. And no noise. There's a little bit of noise in here. You know, you can move this target around here, and you probably can't even see it, but there's a tiny little bit of luminance noise there. That's the grain you'll see. Sometimes you'll see the other type of noise, and I can't see much in this photograph. The other type of noise is called color noise, and you'll see it looks like little speckles of weirdness. It almost looks a bit like this, but you know, a bit more subtle, you know, a bit more like this flare here, but a little bit more subtle. And you'll see that sometimes. If you ever see something like that, just try that color slider and it'll usually clean it up really, really easily, which is cool. All right, so where are we? Let's go before, after. Yeah, that's looking good. Okay. And now we're getting to the area where we're going to, you know, start to do some more localized adjustments. I might just add my little bit of a vignette here. I'm not going to go too crazy with my vignette with this one. I'm going to keep it a little bit subtle because we do have natural darkness, you know, around here, around this area. It's mainly for this area here. And to be honest, I could have brushed that in as well. So you'll see with my vignette, I've just gone a little bit subtle. I usually go like 10 to 11, 10 or 11, minus 10 or 11 if I can speak this morning. And yeah, and we'll just feather that right out. Give it a nice bit of softness there. So like I said, this is going to be a darker frame. And sometimes with your histogram, that's what's going to happen. You know, I'm using exposure as a creative choice. You know, we're darkening down. You know, we've got quite busy areas around the sides here. Yeah, so I'd say we're going to darken that down and leave that a little bit darker here. So one thing that's really cool, which I really like, is this HSL panel here. And we've got this targeted adjustment. And I'm just going to bring that up. I'm going to bring up them blues because I love the blue in that sky. And that's just saturating that single color. You just need to watch whenever you do this targeted adjustment. If you happen to have, you know, blue somewhere else in the photograph, what will happen is, you know, it'll saturate that area as well, and you may not want that. So it is a global adjustment, even though it's targeting a single color, okay? All right, the next thing I'm going to do is drop a radial filter in here, okay? And this is where we can play around. The first one I might just drop right over the sun, okay? And you're going to go, what is he doing? He's going to blow that sun out. And yes, you can see it's quite not very nice where the sun is at the moment. You know, that it was a bit grey and blobby and not very nice. So I'm actually going to lift up those highlights around that area there. Okay, and while I'm doing that, I'm actually going to add some more yellow tone back into that area. And I'm going to do something I call, you know, it's like light bleeding. It's softening the light, okay? It's really subtle, but look at the light. Okay, that's declarity. And what that's doing, it's actually adding a little bit of a blur to that area. And I really love this. I love that. I love that effect. So if we go before, after, and you can see it's added a more natural looking glow to that area, similar to what we would see with our own eyes. So I'm going to duplicate this, okay? So I just right click the pin and duplicate it. And you can see I've got another one here on top. And I'm just going to play around because what I want to do is I'm going to bring that same bit of light down a little bit further, okay? So I'm just affecting that light in that area there. If I hit the O key, you can see where it's affecting. What's important here is I've got it inverted and nice and soft and feathered. You can see I've got this yellow stream of light that I've added into this area. And I think that's it. Let's go. Before, after, before, after. That's looking pretty good. One thing I probably would do from here, and that's just me, is I'd go through, I'd open this in Photoshop probably, because there's so many to do, and I'd clean up a bit of this path along here. I'm not going to do that now. It's pretty straightforward there with the spot removal tool. Make sure you're on content aware, and yeah, that's probably it. So before, after, before, after. Very, very good. Let's go back to our grid. Let's see where we're at. Let's see what else we've got here. And if I happen to miss your photo today, like I said, don't stress. You know, we'll do this again. That's a nice one from Ronald. We did do a night sky just before. Nice one from Rodney. Tim's got a nice one in there. Lean's got a nice one. Wow, those elephants are epic. Let's do a wildlife shot. Let's do Nolene's. So I'm not picking these in any order, guys. You know, I'm trying to be as random as possible. So please forgive me if I don't get to your photo. We're going to do this again. We're going to keep doing it till all the photos are done. I'm going to keep asking for submissions and keep getting through these. So, all right, so let's have a look. So what else I've done is I've actually pulled the highlights back a bit. I just want to see a bit more detail in that area. You can see we did have probably touch clipping, but that's okay because the elephants are the important thing in this scene. The sky is not as important. And because we haven't got a whole lot of sky in the scene anyway, you know, it's filled with these lovely trees. I think that's it's okay for that to be a touch brighter back there. But I'm just opening up and I'm getting a bit of detail through here and just looking. You know, we've brought in a bit of noise there. And that's okay. I'm just trying to balance out the histogram, okay? Now, one thing when you got wildlife like this, if I was to do what we normally do, set the white and black points, you can see what's going to happen there. It's added some nice contrast, but again, you know, it's closed down those shadows around our little elephants there, okay? So I don't usually do that. I usually do it manually. You know, I'll just add a little bit back and play around with those whites and just do that manually, guys. So, because often what it'll do, it'll make it too contrasty. So I'm just going to bring my vignette in now just so I can get a feel for what's going on here. Bring in the midpoint. I am just going to have a look at the thirds. And you can see we've done pretty well here. The eye and the trunk is pretty much on the third there. And we've got this little fella on the third. So it's quite a balanced little scene between this little guy, the big elephant. We've got this tree at the back. And there's a nice framing over here. So I think that works well. If I was going to crop this and do something a little bit different, you know, maybe we could look at, you know, a square crop. It often gets forgotten, and it's something a little bit different up on the wall, you know, a 1x1. You know, we could bring things in a little bit tighter there. You know, if we had, I often like square crops like this. If we had 2 or 3 photographs, you know, maybe we had a detailed shot and maybe we had a shot of the baby, you know, at the legs there, and we could put those together on a wall. They often look quite nice. So that's when I would do that. But I'm just going to reset it because I think for this, you know, the original frame is quite nice there. So, all right, let's jump in. Wow, the time's flying. We're already 20 minutes in. Thanks for sticking around if you're there. If you've got any questions too, please pop them in as we go. There's no problems. If you got a question, please pop it in. It's a bit hard to answer questions at the end if you ask me something about a photograph we did at the beginning because I'll forget probably. So it's all good. All right, let's have a look. So before, after. You can see we're getting some light in there. I'm loving where that's headed. I feel like if we went auto, it's probably going to warm things up a bit. And I don't mind that extra bit of warmth, actually, that extra bit of light. We've got some side light coming in here, sort of. It looks like it's coming from, it's hard to tell. It looks, looks like right to left. You can see a little bit of light over here. So we've got a little bit of light coming in that way, which I think is looking good there. Now, we did have a little bit of noise down in here, and that's fine. We can clean that up quite easily because I did open up those shadows. Let's have a look here. So I don't want to go too crazy with the noise reduction. When I'm looking at areas like this, like this, like this, these are the darker part of the scene here. And I don't know if you can see that on the video, but there's the before, after. We don't want to go too crazy because we don't want to, you know, get rid of all that texture in there, because we go too crazy, what it's doing, it is actually adding a blur, the noise reduction, and we don't want to do something like that. Looks totally unnatural. So we're just looking at cleaning it up a touch, you know, around that sort of 15 to 20 often does the trick, you know. that's looking pretty good. Haven't lost much texture there. So there's a before, after. And now, what else am I thinking for this photograph? You know, we could play around with a little bit of contrast, but what's going to happen is we can add that little bit of contrast in, but we're probably going to lose our little fellas there. I'm actually looking at the background now. I'm looking at the shadows for contrast, because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop a radial filter on the middle again. And now we're going to do our localized adjustments. I'm liking the outside. I like the warmth in there. We could go ahead and make sure we're inverted and feathered there. And what I'm going to do is just open up those shadows again in the center, okay? Because that is our main subject. That's where we want our eye to go. And yeah, there we go. Here we go. Let's have a look. Excuse me. Before, after. I'll just have a drink, guys. Sorry. Cool. I think that's good. It looks natural. I like the warmth tone. That's a, creative choice. With, again, white balance, creative choice. If I wasn't there, I didn't take the photograph. If I was a naturalist, maybe I'm trying to get the white balance to be exactly what I saw it, but maybe not. Maybe I, decided I wanted a bit more yellow. So I've gone, okay, maybe it's a bit more morning tone, afternoon tone. I wanted a bit more, yellower. So it's okay for me to make that choice, okay? And I think they're looking good. Looks good there. Still probably a bit of noise there, and that's the thing, when you're shooting wildlife like this, if we go back to the original photograph, you can see the elephants are slightly underexposed, so the camera's basically metered the whole scene, and it's gone, okay, we want to hold exposure back in the sky, we want to hold exposure back in our darkest shadow, so it's done the best job it could. So for me, I might have overexposed this scene by a stop or a stop and a half, okay? And the reason being is, if I lost detail in the sky, I'm not that worried about it, because that's not anything, it's not my main subject. My main subject is elephants, okay? So I want to get the exposure right on those. So if I had to overexpose this scene by a stop or a stop and a half, then I probably wouldn't have had any of that noise there in those shadow areas, okay? All right, very, very good. Love it. Well done. No, I probably should show the before and after again. Sorry. There it is. Hit the V key. Sorry. So there's the before, after. Very good. Very, very good. Love it. Haven't actually got to photograph elephants yet. It's definitely a bucket list thing. All right, let's have a look here. Let's just bring up some names. We did a wildlife. Let's pick a landscapey one. And this is no particular order here. Oh, this is cool. This is this one. Roman. Awesome, man. I love the reflection. And I love that you've chosen high horizon here, buddy. And I love the light. That's really, really nice. Let's just have a look here at the camera settings. F8. Yeah, everything looks great there. Overexposure or bracketing with elephants. Yeah, it's hard because they're moving. I would overexpose. I definitely wouldn't have bracketed. Yeah. So, and that's, if the elephants, you go, all right, guys, hold up, stay still. I got to take a bracket. Not going to happen. So, I mean, I know you can set your shutter speed in that faster, but chances are they're going to move in between. It's a creative choice. I have to go. My camera can't capture that whole scene. It's super important that I lock down, the shutter speed's fast enough to freeze these elephants, because that's my main subject. I'm going to overexpose it every time. Yeah, and it's okay, because you're only going to overexpose the background. Yeah, I wouldn't worry. So, looking at this, what a beautiful, beautiful scene. Okay, let's go to the develop module. I'm just going to go here to auto. It's probably going to make it too crazy. And this is what I mean. Sometimes, because it's seen the magenta and it's seen the yellow, Lightroom is not going to do a very good job with white balance. So it's up to you to bring that back in manually. And I'm actually going to I'm just wondering which way I'll take this. So now I'm getting creative. I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I actually like the magenta in the hills, so I'm just going to push that up a little bit higher there. But sometimes when you start to do your localized adjustments and that, you need to go back and adjust things. So just because you've adjusted something once, once we get down and look at all our adjustments, we may find that, the white balance needs to be slightly changed, or the exposure or the highlights or something we've done. So I'm just going to set the white and black point here. Just push up that histogram. Oh, that's lovely. Look at that. Look at that light. I love it. It's just beautiful. So looking at the crop here, I do like what's done, and I'm just wondering, again, you know, I'm thinking, you know, this area, even though it's a lovely steely blue color, and something that's important when you're processing, guys, and this is a perfect example, you know, let me just close this, and something that HDR, you know, when you create your HDR photograph, something this happens all the time. So say I was processing my photos and my foreground started looking like this. Okay, and obviously it's blown out and it looks crappy, but you never want your reflection or your foreground element there to be brighter than your sky. Your sky is always going to be brighter. So if I was to make this a HDR photograph and it came out really flat and everything looked like this, then I'd be wanting to darken down the bottom of the scene here, because you never want that foreground element to be brighter than your sky, because it'll make it look unnatural, and it's a dead giveaway. You know, if you see a photograph where the foreground is like way in a situation like this where the foreground is way brighter than the sky in this reflection, you go, oh man, yeah, that doesn't look natural. And the reason being, that's the reason why. So you always want that to be darker. Something cool. All right, let's bring that up, because we do have a little bit of something here in the foreground we want to crop out anyway. But I'm thinking this is, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. We've got a perfect symmetrical, that's the word I'm looking for, reflection. I think the reflection can be pushed almost to the center of the frame, and you get away with it, you know, even though you think, oh no, you're breaking the rules. This is the time when we can break the rules, because, you know, we've got this lovely bit of symmetry here. I've got this beautiful. So this is actually quite an easy edit, this one, because it's been shot well in the field. I think it looks lovely. I'm just going to bring that in there, bring the midpoint in, and I'm just going to add that vignette like we've been doing, guys. And you see, a lot of things I do are quite the same. You know, it's when you start to develop your style, I'm going to add a little bit more contrast there. Let's have a look before, after, before. And my computer's just playing catch up there. That's before. That's after. Beautiful. All right, so let's have a look. A couple of things I can see, and this is just personal preference. Gone to the brush tool here, and I think this area here has got a little bit too dark for my eyes. So I'm trying to just bring that up there. Let's just see if that's doing anything at all. Yep, it is. So we can right click that pin, and I'm going to say duplicate, right click, duplicate. And what that's doing, it's just overlaying that tone there a little bit more. And I'm actually going to push a little bit more into that area, a little bit more yellow and magenta, just so those colors balance out this area. Obviously it's in shadow, okay? So it's going to be slightly different toned, slightly different color, but I am trying to bring that up there, okay? So if I was to turn that brush tool off and on, so there's off, on, off, on. That's to my eye, I like to see a little bit more light in that area. All right, I'm going to go for a new brush now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more texture, a little bit more clarity there, and a nice soft brush, guys. And what I'm going to do is I just want to paint along this ridge, okay, because this is the main thing that's sharp. So what are we doing? What's bringing out this area here? All right, so there's a couple of things that's happened. One is, you know, it's sharper. It's like the sharpest area. Two is it's the brightest area in the scene along this ridge, and that's really where my eye is drawn. And it sort of comes in here and looks at the steel blue, comes around, winds around here, and ends up down in this point, down in the bottom there. And I think that's really, really lovely. I like that a lot. And the vignette is helping do that because it's pulling down this area here a little bit. Let's have a look. Anything else? So I just painted a little bit of texture, a little bit of clarity on those mountains there. I think that's pretty close. What I would do, there's a couple of things. To me, I'm not a naturalist, so I think these are more distracting than adding to this beautiful natural scene. I would take that out in Photoshop. And I'd go ahead, and there's a couple little, and you can see there's like a red something around there. It might be a car light or something. I'd probably take those little things out there. And I know a few of you guys from the membership have heard me say this before, but the important thing is to always remember, you know, if I was to blow this photo up and put it on a billboard and it was as big as possible, you know, what are the things that would stand out? You know, what are the things, you know, it's such a beautiful natural scene. What are the things that would take my eye away? And I feel like these little things here would, and definitely, you know, we've got that red tone and that white dot down there. They're going to be a lot bigger on a billboard. It looks like there's a little building there. I'd probably take that out. And it's good to think about your photography like that. You may not ever blow it up as big as a billboard, but it's good to think about the little details in your shots like that. And, you know, when you're in the field, thinking the same thing, not only in your post-processing, but yeah, definitely something to think about, because it just helps you start to think about all those little details in your frame. Okay, so let's have a look here. Let's go back to the grid. Oh, let's do the horses. Who is this? Who took this photo? This is cool. It is Nancy. Very good, Nancy. What a moment. Oh, you know what I like about this? It's the blur, it's the reactions, the horses, and you know, the fact that even though you've missed, looks like you've missed the focus on them here a little bit, it doesn't matter a whole lot. And the reason why it doesn't matter is because it's basically just, you know, showing the motion. I really love this. I remember seeing a video. There's a famous photographer called Art Wolf. You guys may have heard of him before, and he took a heap of these photographs with film back in the day, and the shutter speed was way too slow, and everything was blurred, and you know, and he went back to those photographs years and years later and said, you know, these are really artistic. They're showing motion. You know, even though it breaks the thought pattern that you're really trying to, you know, show that motion, show that blur. It doesn't even matter, because you know, it's something artistic, and that's what I like about this. I absolutely love it. So I'm looking at this one, and I'm going to hit the D key here. We'll just go and quickly edit it, because I don't think this is going to need too much at all. And for me, I love this motion. I love the artistic feel of it. So I'm even thinking that this would make a good black and white, okay? And what I love about black and whites is pushing those blacks and getting those blacks and getting those whites. I think that looks super cool. And guys, this is just my creative choice, okay? Adding some contrast in there, going for a big vignette, bringing down those sides, you know, and making something quite artistic about it, because that's how I feel. Now, we've lost a little bit of detail in those highlights, so I'm just going to pull those highlights back a little bit, bring a bit of that detail back in there, play around with those whites. I'll just push those whites off a bit. You know, and we've still, and the reason why I'm seeing this is because we've got all this bright area around where the movement is, and I think that's really, really awesome. I love that. I love that. In fact, let's go in here and add a bit of clarity and texture to those areas as well. And this is purely, you know, you might not be a black and white person, and that's okay. You know, this is what I saw with your photograph. So there's a couple of things I want to do. I'm going to pull those highlights back in that area again. You know, I've just painted around, but I wanted to play around with some clarity there, and you probably can't see it. It's super subtle, but what it's doing is just adding some texture. It's adding some movement to that area, and I think that is awesome. And in fact, if I was going to make this a print and put it on the wall, which I probably would, again, I'd go with this slightly wider crop, and I think that just helps tell the story of running into the scene. And I love the fun, and I love the chaos of this area. And you can see we've got a glimpse of this super smooth area over here. And for me, it's just, you know, it's just, I mean, you could edit this naturally. There's nothing wrong with it. But I just see a more, you know, gritty black and white, even though it's sort of fun and grungy, and there's chaos over here. There's, you know, peacefulness that they've popped into nature over here. So it almost screams to me like, oh, you know, we're having fun in nature. You know, it's like, oh, maybe even actually, you know what, I'm just looking at it again and thinking, you know, wouldn't it be cool to see a bit more of this around the bottom here? So we've got this calmness that they've come into and created this chaos, you know, with these fun horses. Anyway, that's my thoughts. You know, from there we can do split toning and things like that. But I think, you know, pushing those blacks quite hard and just watching those highlights is super important. One thing you can do, you know, for instance, you know, you can see I've tapped out my highlight slider here, and I'm still looking at the histogram and thinking there's probably a little bit of clipping still there. I could paint, or if I get a radial filter, and you'll see what I'm doing down the bottom corner here. If I get a, graduated filter, I'll get the words in a minute, and drop that over the corner there, and I'm just going to double click effects to reset everything. You'll see if I hit the O key, I've now created some more global adjustments, which is really cool. So I can go in now and pull those highlights back, you know, in that area, and bring those back there and get that little bit more detail back. So anyway, there you go. Really cool. Love that. Good shot. Good shot. All right, where are we? Let's have a look here. There's some ones we haven't done. We could do a wildlife shot now. All right, let's have a look here at, let's do this one. Awesome. So whose was this one? Let's have a look. Tim's. Awesome, Tim. Love this shot, mate. So let's go in here, and I think we did this one as part of the masterclass, Tim, but really happy that you sent in the D&G and we can have a look at this. And I think there was some talk about the fence line here from memory. I actually don't mind in this shot. The main thing I would change about this compositionally is I actually like these bigger reeds here, but I feel like this front fence is a little bit cut off, so it would have been nice to get forward of that. And I think that reflected in the crop that we decided in the end, which was more like a panoramic type crop. And there's my wife saying good morning. She's been up chasing the children. That's nice of her. I've got to turn off my messages so you guys get to get involved in that. That's nothing like real life. But for me, I'm thinking a crop, something like this. We go panorama. We've got this lovely tree playing off this lovely, rainbow here, if I can speak this morning. And probably the placement of this tree is something I would have changed. I would have moved right or left so we had it in the middle, or, in at least some of the gap between these fence posts so they weren't intersecting. And this is, again, looking at all the details in your photograph. What are the things you see? What are the things that, I can change, the little details, and that's definitely one of them. You imagine if you blew that big up on a billboard, you'd be looking at that going, what's wrong with that tree? It's weird how it goes straight at the bottom, and then, as you get closer, you realize that, oh, hang on, the tree's intersecting with that fence line there. So, yeah, all those little things. So there's not much to do with highlights and shadows here. In fact, we're just going to go ahead and set that white and black points again by holding down the shift, and you can see it's brought in some lovely, lovely detail there. We have got a little bit of noise in the sky there, so I'm just going to bring that noise back just a little bit there, like around 20, and that should hopefully clear that up there in the sky. We probably don't need any color noise. Oh, there's probably, let's have a look. No color noise in this one, because you see our scene is front lit, which is, means Tim's been able to capture this all with one shot. So the sun's been behind him, shining into the sky. So really, really cool. It's a lovely capture. Let's just have a look here. And I'm looking at this. I'm actually not going to go too hard on the vignette because I don't want the sky to be too darkened down. So I'm probably going to back it off just a touch there. I don't want too much darkening in that sky there. Super important. Yep. Yeah, I'm starting to feel it. Let's have a look here. I'm maybe just going to open up them shadows a bit now. And this is what I was saying about sometimes you just need to go back as your adjustments build. Sometimes you need to go back. I'm just doing a reverse graduated filter here. We've got a pretty good line of color there. I'm not too worried about it, I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow tone again to that foreground. And I don't want to add any clarity or texture to the top there. I'm just adding it to the bottom. So if you can see here, I've just put a reverse grad on and I'm just adjusting the bottom part of that scene there. Probably going to open up those shadows there just a little bit there, just with some exposure, guys. Let's just add some contrast into that area there. Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, see, the contrast is really starting to bring out that texture now. So there's the before, after, and we're really, really close. One thing we can try, and it doesn't always work. Rainbows are super tricky, hey, when you've got them on a dark background like this. But if we just run a line of adjustment brush along there, we can have a play and see if we can bring that out a little bit more there. Maybe what I can do is just add a touch of clarity there, and we might pump a little bit of, let's see if magenta's doing anything at all. And you probably won't even see the changes, guys. It's so subtle, but I'm just trying to bring that rainbow out a little bit more. See, before, after, you're probably seeing a little change there. And I'm just adding a little bit of color temperature into that now. Like the reverse grad. Yeah, it's really good. It's so handy for lots of different things, hey. So I think that's it. We've added, yeah, that's it. I think I'm happy with that. So before, after. Lovely, lovely, lovely. All right, let's have a look through here. Let's see what we've got left. I'm definitely not going to get to all these today. So many lovely photographs. So we've got another night sky here. That was Ronald's. I'm just going through and catching the names because I know some of the members got these in really early. There's one from K back there. Scott. We can have a quick look at Scott's. I think I edited his before too. Jim's. We did Jim's. Yep. And so let's have a look at Scott's here. All right. So Scott has sent me in the TIFF. So it looks like it's been slightly processed. So let's have a look at the develop module here. This is actually a waterfall I've been to. It's really, really lovely. The name has just escaped me, but that's always the way. More coffee needed. All right, so when I look at this, there's a couple of things. You know, for me, and I think I said this in the masterclass, Scott, for me, the light is probably not ideal for this location, you know, because at the moment, if you look, what's the brightest thing in the scene? It's really this side of the valley, okay, where we'd want the light in the other direction, which is this side of the valley, because our main subject, to me anyway, is this waterfall, okay? That's what's super important. So when I look at this, there's a couple of things I see. I mean, it looks like the sky's got a bit funky. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to do here, guys, because it is a TIFF, okay, but I'll have a little bit of a go, but you'll get the idea. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to brighten everything up and trying to pull that blue down a little bit in the sky there, because it's you know, there's not too much I can do. Actually, that looks terrible, but that is terrible. Not terrible what you done, Scott. Terrible what I did. So let's just reset that. I don't know if there's too much I can do to fix that sky because it's already been processed by the look of it, but that's okay. Let's just try and bring up the shadows there a little bit. It's not going to do too much because it's only a TIFF, so I can try and just bring up the exposure there a little bit. Anyway, you get the drift. The main thing for this photograph, because it's already processed, if I was to set the white and black point, you can see it's pulled things back there a little bit. I'm actually going to open up the shadows because what I want to do is actually balance out those shadows there a little bit. So I'm going to pull the blacks back a touch. And then what I want to do is I'm actually going to paint some highlights onto this area here. Okay. I'm just going to paint them highlights back in. Just going to be, you can see, you know, see my brush is always really soft. It's always feathered right out, guys, because I'm trying to get that nice soft adjustment. And you'll see the feathering is actually from the outside. You'll see that area to another inside circle, and that's how much my brush is feathered. And I really like having a super feathered brush when I'm doing this sort of stuff. So what I'm trying to do is bring up those highlights there, and it may mean that I have to go to some exposure. Okay. All right. And what I'm trying to do is actually bring up that area. And in verse, what I would try and do is bring down the exposure of the other side of the valley. It's hard because the light is quite harsh. Okay, and this is why we like to go out in nice soft light. Not only, you know, does it, you know, a bit more pleasing to the eye, but what it is, it makes it easier in post. You know, if you've got a situation like this and the light was all soft down the valley, it would be easier to bring up that waterfall in post. All right. So of course, you know, we go and add our vignette and do that same thing before. But the main thing for this photograph is you can see we're relighting the scene. Is there an easy way to show the before and after adjustments? Should you no? So just the backslash key. So underneath your delete key. So there's the backslash. So that's before, after, before, after. So that's the way I do it. I like to go in before and after. Something I always do, guys, is when I process a photograph, if I'm ever unsure about it, I'll go away, make a cup of coffee, do whatever I got to do, and then, you know, I might even leave it to the next day. Even sometimes it just really depends, and then I'll come back to it and have another look at it. It's really amazing, you know, how because what happens when you're processing, you get so attached to your photograph. You know, you get attached to what you're creating. You often miss things, and we often, you know. We might over process or we might under process, or so it's great to give yourself that break before you go, yep, that one's finished, you know. And for me, sometimes it can be an hour, sometimes it can be a month, you know. I'll process something and go, not too sure about that, and then we'll come back to it. You know, the last masterclass we did for the community was basically around finding those gems in your old catalogs, you know, and sometimes it can be years. You'll go back to a photograph and go, yeah, I missed that one, but geez, that's an epic shot. How are we going for time? Good. We got time for a few more. Let's keep going here. Where's that one of K's? I think it's this one, is it? No, that's... I did see one here from K. Sorry, guys. I'm just tabbing through. Must be back a bit. Here we go. There's K's. Oh, lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. That is a grass tree, and that's old grass tree. I think they grow something, don't quote me, but they grow something like a foot in 10 years or something. Like, they grow so slow. So that's an amazingly old grass tree. Just awesome things. Really cool. So this is a lovely situation. We've got some nice balance here. I like this. I like this clump of grass. I like this. Beautiful. And we've got this other tree. And we've got this super long exposure here. But look at that grass tree. It's still nice and sharp, even though there was movement in this tree, which I think is fine. I'm not worried about that with my long exposures. I wouldn't worry about that sort of thing, you know, unless it's something that you really don't want to blur. Say this grass tree got super blurry, then I'd probably think about what I would do with that area. So what I'm doing is I'm just balancing the sort of the scene a little bit, and I'm just cropping it there how my eye sees it. Of course, if you're going to print, guys, it's a whole lot different. You know, I'm sort of freestyle cropping here, but if you were going to print, then you'd have to stick to one of your ratios depending on what you were going to output, okay? But for me, I'm just looking at this going, yep, I think this is more balanced. So we've got this in the bottom right, this in the bottom, left, right, a main subject, and sort of our complementary subject, and we've got this beautiful sky just ripping up there in the background. So I think that's a bit stronger. I probably would have given, you know, these little areas down here just a touch more room, maybe a step, maybe a meter back at the same sort of framing. I do like that you've got quite low and this is sort of going up on a rise. That really works for me. And plus we've got these little complementary, you know, rocks with lichen around the place as well. So I am seeing some tones in the sky, even though, and this is the thing, like, even though you look at this and you go, yeah, it's a little bit grey, but there's some actually lovely tones. There's sort of some bluey tones and magenta-y and yellowy tones there in the sky, and we just have to work to bring those out, okay? You know, if I start to contrast things, you can really see those tones in the sky there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up some shadows in the foreground. I'm going to pull down them highlights and just to balance out that histogram a little bit. Let's set those white and black points. That should bring back some of that contrast for us there. Okay. Oh, beautiful. That's looking great. Love it. And I'm just looking at the horizon line here, and this is where it's super subjective. You know, sometimes the horizon line, even though it went up on an angle like that in real life, I would probably just adjust it so it just feels right in the photograph, and that's what's super important, okay? So I'm just going to drop a graduated filter on the sky, and I'm just going to have a little look around, and we'll probably do some sort of a filter. But I'm just wondering which way I want to tone the sky. You know, what are we going to go with? A little bit more bluey, magenta-y tone. And I don't know what it was like when we're there. So I'm just adding a little bit of tone into that because this is what I see. And a little bit of clarity is often good. And what clarity will do is start to bring out some of those lines around that area. Okay. All right, that's looking pretty good now. Look at that sky. That's a ripping. Love it. I might even just add a couple of points, not too much there. It might be a touch bit magenta-y. But you can see the tones were all there. We're just bringing them out with a little bit of white balance, you know. All right, that's looking good. But what I want to do, again, we're going to go for a luminance mask. And I'm going to say show luminance mask. And what I'm going to do is I just want to take it away from the plant, particularly our main subject. We don't want it to affect that too much. So there we go, we just brought that out now. All right, that's looking pretty good. I like that sky. That's ripping. So let's have a look before, after. So one thing I would do is I'd probably take this in Photoshop and I would Photoshop this little area out over here. Definitely. And we might have a couple of dust spots as well. You know, Lightroom will take care of those pretty easily along this area, but it would struggle with something like that. So you could get rid of those, or you could just do it all in Photoshop later. And there's a masterclass in the community about how to remove distracting elements like that. So, yeah, that's you can always refer back to that if you're part of our paid membership. Cool. All right, so we're looking at that, looking good. Love where it's going. Let's drop a couple of radial filters in here, and this is where radial filters are just so powerful because they're basically what I can do is I can open up those shadows. You know, I can add a slight, you know, if I want to go with maybe a little bit more yellow there, a little bit more clarity, you know, and what I'm doing is I'm actually adding a little bit of spotlight to that area. I'm going to duplicate that little area there, and we're going to put it over here. And what I'm doing is I'm actually adding light into those beautiful grassy knolls, okay? And it may be a touch too much, and that's fine. We can go back and we can pull the shadows down. That's the beauty about it. You know, totally subjective when it comes to these little adjustments like this. But that's cool, because what it's doing, it's saying, yeah, look at this. My eye's drawn here, it ping-pongs here, here, and now we're going to do the same up here around our main subject, okay? I'm just going to go in there, make sure I'm nice and feathered, open up those shadows there a little bit on that area, and probably just bring it in a touch more. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow tone to that area. We could add a little bit, even just a touch of green there. Nothing too subtle, and that's the beautiful thing about this. Even though it's affecting outside our main subject, it's all feathered and soft, and it's really not doing too much. I'm going to leave that guy really dark because we don't really need to see him. He can stay in silhouette. He's not the main subject, okay? So then, what do we got? Before, after, before, after. Now, I am looking at my crop and I'm realizing that my horizon line is quite close to the top of the frame. So there's a couple of things we could do. You know, we could bring this down, we could bring that back up and give ourselves a bit more negative space, and probably where Kay had it is probably pretty right anyway, to be honest. And that's what I mean. Like, maybe I cropped it and I gone, oh, hang on a minute, I made a mistake there. That's not where we should probably see a bit more negative space around our subject. So anyway, but in doing that, I've probably buggered up this tree over here. So anyway, I'm just playing around, looking at the background, you know. Yep, that's looking pretty good. Did we lose? No, we didn't lose much of that foreground. Yeah, that's a bit closer, so it's closer to the bottom third. Now, from here, what could we do? You know, we could go in and we could start to do some localized adjustments. We could go, you know what? I just want to add a bit of shadow and a bit of clarity and a tiny bit of texture to some of these rocks here, you know, particularly these lichen. You know, maybe we don't want it to be brighter than our little grass or our background element or our main subject here, but we could go in and do those, you know, this bit of lichen here, and there's another bit over here, and there's a bit here, you know, and what we're doing, we're just adding clarity. It is really great for this sort of stuff, you know. I can go in and make those adjustments now, and we're just bringing them up just ever so slightly, okay, and we're building on our global adjustments by our localized adjustments. Now, I probably would have gone in, I probably would take this area out. I probably would take the rest of that tree out there in Photoshop just to clean up those, you know, the border patrol that we do. Sometimes when we're in the field, we can't get rid of those things, so we have to go ahead and we have to go ahead and do it in post, you know, clean that up. But I think that's pretty cool. I don't know what you guys reckon, but that's a cracking shot. Love it. Really, really cool. And that's really how we take our photography to the next level. Now, there's heaps of photographs I didn't get to here, guys, so I apologise if I didn't get to your photograph, but there's still plenty to go through. But don't worry, we'll have another show, and I'll prioritise those ones for next time. We're coming up on an hour now. But did anyone have any questions? Did anyone have any feedback? Just going to have another drink of water. Awesome. Looks like we mightn't have any questions. It's always lags a little bit, so yeah, it was an awesome photograph, like just amazing photograph of Kay. So she did a wonderful job. Well, if there's no questions and no feedback, what was I going to say? Something. Let's have a look here if I've got my. Sorry, I probably should. Sorry, instead of bouncing around and making you guys sick, let's go back to me. And just make sure. Excuse me. I'm a bit clogged up today. I don't know what's going on. All right, so for you, those of you who aren't part of our membership, if you're interested, there's a link below this video. It's for 30 days free, which is just awesome. And then you go into the community here. Yeah, great. Thanks, Vicky. Thanks for the feedback. And you'll see all these amazing masterclasses. And what happens every month, a new masterclass comes out, okay? And inside of that masterclass, you know, you've got these 3 videos. You know, there's a 7-minute video of me in the field doing my thing. And then we've got the full post-processing workflow. I take you through everything I'm thinking about. And then same again with post-processing. And we get the before and after photographs and all my settings. And what's extra awesome is this part down the bottom here where you get to submit your own photographs based on the assignment video that you get up here. And geez, I look tired in that one, don't I? And I give you a video critique so I can go through and edit your photos and help you out. So if you're interested in that, there's a link below, 30 days there. And you can always go back and do any of these masterclasses whenever you get a chance and submit your photos. So you can see there's everything: hyperfocal distance, foregrounds, you know, shooting reflections. We've got wildlife and abstracts and macro, and yeah, there's basically everything there. And it's what's cool is, you know, using polarizers and, you know, dynamic range, so HDR, and, you know, shooting panoramas, and there's everything there. So what's cool about it is like it's a resource for you to go back and refer to if you ever need it as well, which is just awesome. All right, guys, that's it. I just wanted to tell you about the community. If you want to know more about it or you got any questions, help@3colors.co. If you just want to jump in and sign up and grab your 30 days free, jump in. There's a link below this video, and that's it. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. And we'll definitely see you again next time. I'm going to try on Friday, jump on again and do another live stream. I'm not sure about the mornings, maybe a bit later. We didn't get as many this morning, but anyway, if you've got some feedback around the times, I know some people have been trying to jump on earlier so our American friends can jump on. I know it's late in the UK right now, but yeah, anyway, it's at least you can watch it after the fact, which is the main thing. And if I missed your photograph, don't worry, we're going to do this again. I'm going to try and make this a weekly thing, at least maybe 1 or 2 live shows a week, and just so happens I haven't been traveling as much, so yeah, thanks, Narelle. I appreciate you stopping by. It's always great to see your smiling face. All right, guys, that's it. Take it easy, and we'll see you in the next one. And please, if you need anything, if you need help with anything, help@3colors.co, and I'll be in touch really, really soon. All right, all the best. Peace.